You know, we just talked last night and didn't have like a specific program or anything. So we just thought we'd chat.
Yeah, great. Well, hi guys, I'm Ram Das, like Mr. Mac, so nice to introduce me. Okay.
Or UT.
UT.
Just not Tommy Boy.
Yeah. So you guys are all seniors, right? Yeah, so this is last year of high school. It's pretty exciting. And you guys all know what you're doing next year? No? Good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Doors open then. It's an exciting time. I was thinking about what to share, and like Tom said last night, we just kind of chatted and there's no real plan. But I thought I would share a bit about my path, how I encountered the path, and then open it up for questions. And then also too with that video in the mandala, I had some questions of my own. If you guys don't mind, I would love maybe towards the end to hear a bit about your guys' experience with the mandala, because there's quite a lot there. But yeah, like Tom was sharing, when I graduated high school, I went and traveled around Europe, just backpacking, hanging out, seeing cathedrals and stuff like this. Although at this time, I was also defined atheist. I was not into religion anymore. I grew up Catholic, right? But I also had the fortune to have an uncle that would always talk to me about philosophy, talk to me about shamanism, talk to me about Hinduism, Buddhism, the Catholic Church, whatever I wanted. So I consider myself very lucky. I think you guys should consider yourselves lucky too. So when I was traveling, I was just kind of seeing the sights. But I came back working, and before going to university, which was my plan, I went and traveled in South America. And like Tom said, I was just planning on backpacking. I really went to Peru because it was the cheapest flight. I had no plans actually to stay in Peru. I wanted to see Brazil. I wanted to see Chile. I wanted to see Colombia, a lot of different places. But Peru was the cheapest flight, and that's where I landed. And about 2 weeks into a year-long trip, I came upon a place that was basically giving classes, discussions, things like this about starting communities, intentional communities. Have any of you guys ever visited a community? Or a farm, even? Yeah? Yeah, cool. It's definitely a different way of life. I don't know what you found over there, right? At the farm.
It was something, all right.
It was something, that's for sure. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's what I was looking for, right? That's what I was looking for. I was just looking for kind of a different way of life, a different way of living, a different way to live the day to day. But I didn't plan on staying down in South America. My idea was more to just explore, to experience, and come back to Portland. Maybe head out to Hood River or something, spend more time out there.
Because you were doing a lot of work with like the trees and,
Yep.
and fruit trees. I remember
Yeah.
you were very involved in that
Yeah.
before you headed down.
Yeah, planting a lot of trees here throughout Portland.
Yeah.
Harvesting fruit, putting in trees, lots of good fun stuff like that. Portland's a special place because it's got a lot of opportunities, a lot of alternative lifestyles, I guess. But I was, without realizing it, I was looking for a little bit more though. Yeah. And when I got there, I really liked it, and I found out that they were a shamanic community, and that they were working with sacred plants. And so I don't know if you guys, I think Tom's talked a little bit about this, and ceremonies, things like this. That's a little bit out of the norm for a Portlander, right? For a Pacific Northwesterner. And to be honest, it wasn't really my goal, I guess. I'm a musician, so I was like, passing through Peru to go study jazz in Brazil or something, I was more into bossa nova than I was into spirituality, because like I said, I was an atheist. Actually, by this time, it was more agnostic, I was just like, man, God, I don't know, I don't care. I had kind of rejected this, right? But I decided to enter into a ceremony because it seemed like an interesting experience. And this ceremony completely changed my life, right? And I stayed there a little bit longer. And little by little, I started to realize what I could only start to perceive in this first ceremony was that I had found my home. I had found my home, I had found my path, I had found what I was looking for, even though I had no idea I was looking for something so profound. Right? And it's kind of funny because if you think about it, a guy from Portland, grew up Catholic, goes to Peru and finds shamanism. And it's not just shamanism, we're also a Vaishnav community. So Vaishnav is within the context of what you guys talk about as Hinduism, right?
Mhm.
So Vaishnav means worshippers of Vishnu, basically, right? It's also known here in the States as the Hare Krishnas. I don't know if you guys have talked about this or if you've heard of this, the Hare Krishnas. You'll see them sometimes in the airport. Well, not as much anymore. But
Yeah.
this was big when you were younger.
Yeah.
Or all around, shaved heads, orange robes, kind of the typical priest-like dress and vision or image of those from India, right? Even though there's here all over the States a bunch of white guys shaved heads. But my point is that I actually grew up across the river in Vancouver, right? Grew up Catholic, turned atheist, went to Peru just to check it out, right? Found a shamanic Hare Krishna community, right? It makes no sense. It makes no sense from any logic, right? I don't know what you guys are expecting for this next year. I don't know what you guys are expecting for your next 5 years, but sometimes life comes and just gives you something completely different. I think my mom told me this growing up. God works in mysterious ways, okay? And that is life. So be open to it. If you guys don't listen to anything else I say today, right? If you don't listen to anything else I say, just know that finding your path, your home, and there's something that can break all rules of what you think you should do is a completely legitimate and real possibility. Right? Because I think it's really exciting. The chapter you guys are in, I think it's really exciting because you guys have spent, 18 years, being told what to do, and you're probably still told what to do, right? But sometimes life and God Himself has a completely different plan. And that's what I found, right? Because like I said, I was atheist, but that didn't mean that God left me. That just meant that I needed a break. I needed some time to figure my stuff out, right? And that was okay. It was completely okay, right? And that is the grace of God, in my opinion, right? Is that He lets us choose, free will, right? He lets us choose, right? And I had the choice too. When I got down there, I was in front of completely changing everything that I had thought, right? I was planning on coming back and going to school for engineering, get a good job, make good money. I love the Northwest, right? I didn't leave because I don't like it here, right? But I had the choice. I had the choice to stay there or not. And they're two good choices. Life never gives us a good choice and a bad choice because that's not a real choice, right? If you just have a good thing and a bad thing, it's not a real choice. You have to take the good thing or you're just in something bad. So that was one of the most important things that I wanted to share today is just know that life has really, really crazy plans sometimes. And that's the mystery of life. I'm sure you talk a lot about the mystery. The great mystery. It's a form of God. The mystery itself. So, yeah. That's the little introduction I wanted to give. Now, you were thinking it might be interesting for me to talk a little bit about the combination of Vaishnavism and shamanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, before I go on, though, do you guys have any questions just off the bat? Great. I'll just keep talking.
If you don't mind, one of the things that we'll look at when we spend a few days with non-Catholic Christianity is a segment from a film called The Black Church. And what we'll see is how the Yoruba, a religion that many of the peoples of West Africa were practicing, came with the kidnapped peoples to the Americas, and they encountered Christianity. And we'll see how that Christianity and the Yoruba blend. And it has numerous offshoots, right? And so what we're witnessing in that is how religion evolves and how it spreads and how it changes depending upon circumstance, place, and the people. And so this, I thought it was really interesting that with Ram's community, with the dancing together of the shamanism and the Vaishnavism, Vaishnav,
Yep.
that we see something new. And this is not unusual in the course of religion in human history.
Yeah, and this is natural. This is really great because tradition is alive, right? Tradition is alive, and it should be. When tradition stops changing, that's when it dies. That's when it dies because it's not natural. If you look at nature, nature is growing, always. Nature doesn't stop growing, right? And when it stops growing, it dies. Because this is just nature. So this is cool. Now, what I do is very particular. It's not normal, which is what I would call unorthodox, right? In every path, in every tradition, there's an orthodox path, an orthodox way of walking the path, and there's an unorthodox way. So the tradition is always changing, but also it's not often that you find two traditions coming together like this. Also that are so different. Right? So Vaishnavism in the orthodox way it's a wonderful path. It's like, and I'm talking about the way they practice. They're up at like 4 a.m. They're chanting mantras, right? They're all the men are with shaved heads. They wear simple robes. They take their shower. In their shower, they're chanting mantras, purification mantras. Very strict diet. They don't eat meat, eggs, onions, garlic. They don't even drink coffee. They don't even eat chocolate. It's not just simple though. It's just and there's a science behind it. I don't have to go into everything, but there's a science and a precision to the way of walking the path. And this is all traditions have this, which is actually a really interesting topic in my opinion, the science behind the path. But the way that I walk is a bit unorthodox because it combines the shamanism. And to share a bit, my teacher, his name's Sri Gopal Das, which is also a name of initiation. He encountered Prabhupada, who's known as a Vaishnav saint, who brought the Vaishnav philosophy from India to the States back in the 70s or late 60s. And so he was initiated by Prabhupada back in the 70s, basically. And he went to live in France, just on a farm. He had his own place, just doing the orthodox thing. And little by little, he started to have dreams. And he started to have dreams about the abuelo tobacco. So I'm not talking about cigarettes. I'm talking about grandfather tobacco, sacred relation with tobacco, which is in all of the traditions, indigenous traditions of North America and South America. Right? He's like one of the main abuelos that you can find throughout all of this continent. Right?
So if I could just point out, right, you're referring to tobacco as abuelo, right? And so there's this kinship, there's this family relationship to the plants, to the medicine.
Yeah, exactly. And this is super important because we're not talking about doing drugs. We're not talking about just consuming, the active chemical in tobacco is nicotine. It's not about nicotine. It's about, like he said, my grandfather. Right? This is family. That's what defines us as spirit, is the family that we're part of. So yeah, thanks for expanding on that. But anyways, long story short, Sri Gopal Das started working with peyote, right? And he started to encounter that these two traditions come together. And so with masters of the peyote tradition, he did a ceremony with a condor feather and an eagle feather, right? Which is connected to various prophecies. And he took these two feathers, doing a ceremony with peyote to see, hey, we want to do this together, right? We want to make this a real thing, not just that he was practicing it, but make it a real thing. And the response of ceremony was very good. So he took it to India and encountered masters of the Vaishnav path in India, and they did fire ceremonies. So many traditions have ceremonies of fire. It's one of the main sacred elements, sacred fire. Right? My point in sharing this is that this is a way of working with two traditions that's authorized by lineages, right? Because you can, and it can appear organically, like the story you were sharing, but also it's important to see that to work with different traditions, and I think that this is a fundamental work and it's super important, there has to be a common base, okay? And one of those common bases that you find in all traditions is that lineage is so important. So this way of working isn't just something that we thought of and like, hey, that would be cool, because this happens a lot and it brings a lot of confusion, right? So I wanna share this because it's important to know that there is a way that life works and there's a way that life doesn't really work. Right? If you try to do something outside of the structure of life, sometimes it just brings more confusion. So the spiritual path is also, there's a science to it, right? It's an art and a science, and it's first the path of the heart, but knowing how to walk or having the people that can help you, right, to help you walk in a correct way is also super important. So in this sense, we combine Vaishnavism and shamanism, right, as one and different. It's one path, but it's two paths at the same time. Right? But this is also authorized on both sides as a way of working. And what we do is we work on the base of universal philosophy, the philosophy of nature, the way that life works, that brings a way to see these two traditions together. Right, does that a bit touch on what you were wanting to about these two?
Think about the lineages. I mean, even within Christianity and the Christian churches, right? The lineage just goes back to Jesus.
Yep.
And then Jesus' lineage goes back to Abraham, right? And so this lineage is found within the tradition that many people are familiar with Islam. It's going back to Muhammad, but from Muhammad to Jesus to Abraham, right? So lineage is really important in these religions of the book as well.
Yeah. It's funny because when I got down there and I met Sri Gopal Das, man, I was in so much reaction to the Catholic Church for my own experiences and things, and encountering the Vaishnava tradition and universal philosophy, then I could reconnect with my Catholic roots. Because like you're saying, you just connected something I'm talking about with Hinduism and shamanism, but it's in Christianity too. It's in Catholicism. These are universal structures, right, that you find in all authentic traditions. Right? So while you're exploring out there, know that there's a way that life works, and you can see if it's legitimate or not. That's super important. But it's really, for me, it's one of the most beautiful works is to see how all of these traditions are actually connected. All of these traditions, it doesn't mean that you have to work with all of them, right? If you need to dedicate to a path. This is natural too, right? If you're in the desert looking for water, you can dig a hole here, you can dig a hole there, but if you never dig deep enough, you never find water. So at one point, it's necessary. You got to dig deeper. You got to go where your heart tells you, and you got to try. But also, it's really beautiful to see how all the different paths are connected. It's so sad how much war there is because of differences, right? You chant to God, I chant to Krishna, you chant to Allah, whatever it is, right? And because of that, we fight. It makes zero sense. It makes zero sense because we're all humans, right? And we're all trying to find eternal happiness, right? We just have a different way of expressing it, a different way of doing it. So to fight about it makes no sense, in my opinion. When actually, if you take the time, open up conversation and dialogue, right, you can find that there's a lot of similarities.
So before we we'll take a break for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'll invite you all to come back and to maybe write down some questions that you would like Ram to address. But you work with, we talked about shamanism. There are like two main ways that shamans alter consciousness in their practice. One, I introduced to you with the drumming, which was the form in which I was trained. But then there's also medicinals. And you mentioned abuelo tobacco. What are some of the other abuelos and abuelas that you work with?
Yeah, it's cool because all traditions have a shamanic sign. Right? All traditions have like a more orthodox way and a more shamanic way of working. And I think shamanism, the actual term, comes from like Russia, Siberian, right? and they use different words in all places, right? But where I am, right, in Peru, there's also a lot of sacred plants because there's a very very strong connection with shamanism in the ancestral tradition. And the main abuelos they work with would be tobacco. It's it's a bit similar, but it's a little bit different. It's mapacho, right? I don't know if we talked too much while we were there. Right? Mapacho. I don't work so much with mapacho. Mamacoca, right? This is one of it's like the principal abuela, grandmother, right? Sacred plant of the Andes. Another one would be ayahuasca. I don't know if you guys have heard of ayahuasca because it's becoming a little bit mainstream, which is something to also be careful about. And Wachuma. Wachuma is also another one that's a cactus, right? So it's like the brother of the abuelo peyote, which is like the cactus of the north. Mm.
Well, let's take a break for 5 minutes. When you come back, I'll maybe have some papers for you if you want to write down some questions. And if you just want to ask a question without writing it down, you can do that too. So let's break for 5 minutes, okay?
I like the question.
Yeah,
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So we have, let's go ahead and close iPads and we'll come on back together. So we've got some questions in the bowl here, and if you want to add to them, go ahead and do that. Bring them on up. But are there any questions that you just want to ask? Ask out loud. Excellent. Ram knows I'm weird, so I'm not afraid for him to
No worries.
see me like I am. So hey, how do you want to do that? You want to just pull randomly? Or?
Or do you want to read them?
I can read the question, yeah.
Yeah.
I can pretend it's my question.
Yeah, agreed.
Ram,
Yeah. Yes, Mr.
did
Mac.
you did you travel alone? If so, why?
Good question. Good question. While I was traveling, I traveled with a buddy when I went down to Peru. When I traveled in Europe, I actually traveled with my girlfriend at the time, and then for 6 months, and then 3 months on my own. I chose to go with friends or my girlfriend because I wanted to have a partner. It's also safer. It's also easier to deal with situations when you have someone. But I have to say, when I traveled alone too, I loved it. Right? By that time, I had traveled quite a bit, so I had a bit of experience, and I knew what to expect, more or less. You never can know everything, but that it was also a great experience.
Mm-hmm. What did you experience through ayahuasca?
The golden question.
The golden question.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Ayahuasca is really a special medicine. It's a really special medicine. You can read about it all online. I wouldn't recommend it because in shamanism is the sense of connecting with the mystic reality that is always present, but that we're not conscious of or that we can't perceive. So the idea of shamanism is to be able to connect with the invisible reality, right? To connect with spirit, right? Which is within all of us, right? We all have our soul, spirit, soul. But there's also more going on than what we can realize. For example, the trees, right? The abuelo medicines, the grandparent medicines, right? And so it's very different than drugs, right? Drugs, for example, you take LSD and you see the walls breathing or whatever crazy stuff you can't imagine, right? But that doesn't mean that it's something spiritual, right? So it's actually very, very different. And people can also take ayahuasca in the same way, right? So this is something that I'm really glad this question came up because to explain that you can read a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean it's sacred, right? So what I experienced is ayahuasca the first time because of my past. I was looking for a trip my first experience, I was looking for colors. I was looking for crazy stuff, you know. I also wanted some guidance in my life. And it took me a little bit, right, in my first ceremony, right? And then little by little, my heart started to open. And I started to realize that this medicine isn't just a tea, right? It's not just it's not just psychoactive substances. It's a person. It's a spirit there that loves me, right? And she lets me into her home, and she came, and her guidance isn't first ideas, it was first love. And so that's what I encountered with ayahuasca, my experiences with ayahuasca, and this is what I try to share with people when I also serve the abuela, is that she's first our grandmother, and this kind of breaks all ideas, because we think of a person as having a body, right? Having 10 fingers, 10 toes, right? A mouth, 2 eyes, a nose, etc. Right? But in reality, spirit is so far beyond what we think is reality. It's so far beyond this body, right? And it's inside, and that's what the ayahuasca showed me and helped me learn to experience, so that I can live that every day in all my relations.
Just kind of like a follow-up question, I guess.
Yeah.
Do these different medicines like get you in contact with like different parts of your spirituality, or they all kind of reach out the same end goal?
Interesting. I would say both, right? How you connect with medicine is dependent on your finality, right? So there's different finality. I'm sure you guys talk about this too in this class. There's different finalities. Are you looking to just melt, right, in the oneness of life that's present? We're all eternal, right? Or are you looking for a relation with God, for example, right? So these are details in the science of shamanism that are super, super important, because it defines on how you will connect with the sacred plants, right? But at the same time, the sacred plants are very powerful, and they can help you in all different aspects of life. For example, if your finality is clear, then you can start to develop projects, right? For example, if my personal lineage is for bringing projects and forming leaders for a healthy society, right? So our connection brings a lot of inspiration about how to manifest projects for a new humanity. For example, so this is one aspect. Another aspect is the mystic arts and sciences, alchemy, right? Which is not just about transforming lead into gold, although that is real, right? But it's not about transforming lead into gold. It's transforming at the level of consciousness, right? At the level of who we are and who we know ourselves to be, from lead to gold. Right? So but there's lots of different ways of working with the sacred plants. Like I said, depending on your intention, your connection, and your lineage. For example, there's people in the jungle, right? They're in Peru. What's the most known is a Shipibo tradition, and they're known for healing, right? And this is a reality. These people do amazing work to heal stuff. This can be past traumas. This can be stuff in your DNA. This can be physical sicknesses, cancer, whatever. Like, this is a reality of people that specialize in like natural medicine and the work with the sacred plants, right, for healing. There's another place in Peru that's a bit different. Their specific work is addiction, right? So helping, and this has an amazingly high success rate, right? So there's lots of different ways to work, and it depends on your intention, your connection, your lineage, etc. Any other questions about this particular topic?
So how often,
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So I'm particularly in a process of formation. So I also serve the medicine.
What do you mean by you serving the medicine?
Serving the medicine means, literally like pouring the glass and giving it to people. But what it means is that I'm learning to have the responsibility of calling this connection, right? Because it's like anything else. It doesn't come just like that, right? It takes time. It takes practice. You have to learn how to cultivate a spiritual connection and cultivate that in your life to be able to connect with the medicines in the right way. It's like anything else, right? If you want to play piano, you got to practice, right? If you want to play football, you got to practice throwing the football. It's like anything else, you gotta learn. So I'm in a process of formation to serve the medicine, and we're a group. We serve together. We serve in team. We take turns, and we work with a lot of different people. And so we usually take once every week or every 2 weeks. But this is an intense formation because this is my life, right? Normally, or not normally, but in other contexts, people take it, like in the peyote tradition, where it's more like families. They would get together once a month, or once every few months, right? Or once a year, right? Vision quests, things like this, and they would be accompanied with peyote. So there's lots of different ways of working with it. And for us, we can have the idea to have a ceremony on Friday, for example, but then it's not the time, and it's not because we're not ready. Sometimes it's because we're not ready. Sometimes it's because the grandparents, the ayahuasca, whatever abuelo is saying, hey, you guys need to prepare a little bit more. So we can have our plan, but it's always up to the medicines themselves.
How would you know that the abuelos were saying, now is not the time, you need more preparation? How do you experience that?
Yeah. Often, it's more because there's a space when you know the door's open, right? When the door's open, it's the inspiration comes for your purpose, your intention for entering in the ceremony. There's always a bit of resistance too, because that's the path of medicine. The path of medicine is also a path of the warrior. You have to confront the challenges. It's not just about skating by, it's about confronting what not everyone's ready to confront, and you do that to try to bring a healing for the whole, for the collective subconscious too. But there's a moment when you feel the door's open and it's time to go. And there's sometimes when you just feel that door's not open. So like I said, it's a formation, it's a practice, and so little by little, learning this, you start to be able to feel it and perceive. It's like I said, it's like any other skill. But I'm talking not just about physical skill, playing piano or understanding math or whatever it is. I'm talking about subtle perceptions, subtle spiritual skills, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I just want to kind of piggyback off on something you talked about. So the medicine, the abuelos have, a spirit, right? There's a spirit to them. And so the shaman one of the shamans that I trained with, using the drumming as technique, is really reluctant to use medicinals because of the fact that each of them does have a spirit, and she doesn't know it, and she's not familiar with it, and so she does not want to. She would feel like it would be arrogant and disrespectful for her to go and seek spirit through something that is not her tradition, that is not her way. Yeah. And so she has this respect for the spiritual energy, the spiritual personality, the personhood of the medicines.
Yeah.
And it's also this idea within shamanism that these plants, they're other people. They're people. They're not. It's not just the humans like you were talking about, but there's the plant people. There's the apus, right? The mountains.
The mountain people. We have a bunch around here too.
Yeah. We were talking about that yesterday. Yeah. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think it's totally correct too on her part, because the path with the medicine is also not for everyone, but respect. Just like with anyone, right? You go to someone's house and you're respectful, right? This is also the ethic we should have with all of life, and especially with the sacred plants.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. When using medicinals, what things surprised you? What was the first experience like? You talk a little bit about what the first experience was like. Are you able to talk about like in your body? What was that like too?
Yeah. In my first experience. You're talking about? Or just in general?
So
Remember.
what thing surprised you as the first part?
Okay, yeah.
And then this one refers to your first experience.
Okay. Yeah. Medicine is always a surprise. That's one of the wonders of this path, the shamanic path, is that, and I think any spiritual path is always a surprise, right? Because a spiritual path should be exciting. There's different paths. I'm not here to compare, but the path that I walk is a path of discovery. It's a path of revelation, and it's excitement, enthusiasm. They say in Vaishnavism that enthusiasm is the gas that runs the motor of the path, right? If you don't have enthusiasm, if you're not excited about your path, man, that's boring. You can just do a lot of, what is it in Sanskrit? It's sadhana. Sadhana. Do you remember what this means? Like discipline, right? You can wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. You can chant your 16 rounds, 108 beads. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You can do this stuff, and there's benefit. But if you're not excited, if you're not really implicated, man, it has nothing. It's not that it has nothing. It's just that's a hard path. That's like a grueling path. It's not very different from getting up and going to work every day, right? And so if that's what you want to live, that's okay too. Huh? Everyone has their flavor of walking the path of life. But I love the excitement of the path, the excitement of the spiritual path that makes me want to do better in my life. That makes me want to discover what does God have in plan for me. That makes me want to confront my challenges, right? Otherwise, it's just kind of grueling, and that's not how I walk the path. So surprises happen all the time. Yeah. And I think if we open our eyes, there's stuff that could surprise us, and in all aspects of life. It's a bit hard to explain the experiences with the sacred plants, but I'll tell you one of the things that surprised me the most was encountering the how to explain it, the glory of chanting the holy names. My particular lineage works specifically with mantra, right, which is chanting. Right? And when I say mantra, I don't mean just Sanskrit words from India. I'm talking about any sacred name of God, right? Any sacred name of God, because underneath the sacred name, within the sacred names is the sacred vibration, right? And this vibration awakens consciousness. But then to encounter the flavor, and God has so many flavors. And this is from the Vaishnav and the shamanic vision. So I'm sharing from this perspective. That God has so many forms, and God has so many ways of expressing His personality and relating specifically and uniquely with each one of His devotees. And like this, to chant His name with love, I had never experienced that. I had never experienced what a grace that is. Because our connection with medicine too is not about seeing crazy stuff. It's about opening our heart. But you open your heart to someone, right? It's not just about you open your heart in a relation of love with someone. And that, in my particular lineage, is through the chanting of the holy names of God. And that surprised me. That blew me away because I had no idea. I'm a musician, man. I played music all of my life. And I had no idea that there was so much more to what it means to chant and what it means to love. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any follow-up question on
Yeah.
that? What is Peru like?
Yeah, Peru's interesting. So where I live in the Andes, which is the mountain range that goes from Colombia down through Chile. I live at about 10,000 feet in Cusco. And Cusco is what would be called the cultural capital of Peru and of South America. Lima is the political capital of Peru. So Cusco is very, very different, and it's totally different from here. It is so different from Portland, the way of life. Not just because economically, it's a third world country, right? So it's considered much more poor than, and there's no doubt, right? The cars are older, for example. There's trash in a lot of places. There's stuff like this. But the thing about this country is that it's considered so poor because the majority of its population still lives in the countryside in the ancestral way, right? So of course it seems poor from outside eyes, right? For us, and we grow up here with like amazing infrastructure and all this stuff, a ton of stuff that Peru just doesn't have, right? But these people actually live in a way that I personally consider, which is why I still live there, as so rich. They live in a way that they're so rich, even if they have dirt floors, right? Even if they don't have what is like HVAC heating or whatever it is, right? Even if they don't have this stuff, right? They have a tradition and culture that is so alive and being practiced, right? So for this is something really interesting. Here, I think that here in the tradition, like hundreds of years ago, people were probably doing some sort of offering to the mountains, to the land, to the rivers, to the salmon, who knows, different abuelos, different spirit abuelos. But because it's not being practiced anymore, it's like the land goes to sleep. It never goes away because spirit is eternal. But it's like the land goes to sleep. So in the Andes, this is not the case. In the Andes, there are still people that are practicing the tradition and making offerings. So the land is very much alive. So that means, this is kind of crazy because people don't always get this when they go to the Andes and they think like, man, these mountains are so beautiful, I'm gonna go hiking, right? But there's an ethic when you go to the mountains, and when people don't follow it, they get totally lost. And this isn't just because they get lost because they don't know the way. This is what happens when you don't follow the ethic with the land. Here, this stuff doesn't happen as much. People can still get lost, right? But the spirit of the land in Peru is still so much alive. The tradition, the ceremonies, the music is so much alive that the land itself, I don't know how to explain it. It's just alive in a different way that we don't experience the same here, right? And so like this, there's also so much spiritual potential. It's like a really vibrant land itself. And this is something really special about Peru. If you guys have the chance to go, I definitely recommend it. But be aware of this. Don't be stupid either. you gotta go in the right ethic and recognizing that it is a totally different world than what you know. And not just because the food is different or because they speak a different language, but because they relate to life differently. And because of that, life also responds differently.
I think about when we were up at Don Vicente's home, and before he showed up, and we were eating the meal that his wife prepared, and then going into the temple, and then sleeping in the different huts that night.
Yeah, that was real special because we got to do a bit of that, right? We went to Machu Picchu, and at Machu Picchu, before we did much, I think we did a little offering, didn't we?
I don't remember specifically.
Yeah, I think we did like a little one with coca, just to ask permission to give our thanks that we could be there, right? And this is great stuff that I'm sure you practice in this class, right? Giving thanks, you know, the meditations or different things like this. That it's a good practice because it's natural and it's healthy, right? But in Peru, where it's a land that's so alive, this is just the way things are done. This is like something special you guys probably do in this class, right? But in Peru, it's like the way things are done. Man, if you don't make your offerings, it's just you're out of alignment with life, right? And things don't go well. Why don't things go well? Because you're not in the rhythm of life. And so for me, that's what's really special. If you guys get a chance to go and encounter some of that, I definitely recommend it, because to experience that such a different way of living life is really special.
So Ram's community is in the Sacred Valley, and you live on one side of the valley, and then we drove down to Ollantaytambo.
Yep. Yeah.
And as we were driving down that side of the valley, we passed a school that is a LaSallian school. So
yeah.
you live maybe half an hour away from a LaSallian school.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You guys got to do a field trip. Huh?
That's right. Yeah. What does your spiritual name mean?
Okay.
What's the significance of taking this name instead of your birth name?
That's a very good question. So my birth name was Ryan Evans. My spiritual
Ryan
name,
Matthew.
Ryan Matthew Evans. Yep. And my parents also had, no, it's good because my parents had a lot of intention when they gave me that name too. So my mom was a bit, she wasn't so happy when they took another name. But Ram Das is my spiritual name. Das means servant. Ram is a name of God in the Vaishnava tradition, which is, in the Vaishnava tradition, just to explain, give a little background, in the Vaishnava tradition, there's one God that has many forms, right? So for example, Krishna and Ram and Vishnu, Nrsingadev, Varahadev, there's so many different names and forms that God came to this earth, right? Right? Allah, Jesus. That's why when there's a joke, the English colonized India, right? And they said, Jesus is your God, and they said, okay, and they put him on his altar because they see that it's one God that has many forms. So this is the way that they relate. So Ram is one form of God who came to earth, right? Just like in so many traditions, but he came to earth as the divine king, right? So he came to earth as the divine king to establish the divine kingdom. Right? In the Christianity, they say the kingdom of heaven on earth, right? So it's not so different, right? It's not so different. And the sense of my name is that I am the servant of Ram, right? So Ram Das would be my complete name. And the sense of taking initiation, this is a very, very good question, because the sense of taking initiation is what we call second birth. Right? So we have first birth when we're born in this body, right? And we're raised, we're little kids. The sense of second birth, though, is coming to awaken the revelation of our eternal identity of spirit. So this means that it's not to negate first birth, it's not to negate the body, these aspects, but it's to awaken to who we truly are. That's an eternal identity, and that has no beginning and has no end. Right? So the sense of second birth is awakening, revealing and it's like a seed, right? You plant a seed, but you gotta water it, right? You gotta give it sunshine, you gotta weed, take out the weeds, all this kind of stuff, right? So it's like the beginning of starting to walk the path of spirit, right? That is an eternal reality and always was there, always is there, and always will be there. But before coming to this consciousness, we just think that, okay, I'm this body, which means that if I'm born, then I'll die, then what will happen, right? Obviously you guys have a little different, you guys have a base of seeing with heaven, with God, right? But the sense of second birth in the tradition, right, it's called initiation. And there's a lot of different ways that different traditions talk about initiation, but it's kind of like beginning to walk your path of destiny.
So within Christianity, the Christian scriptures, and I can't remember for sure if it's Matthew or I think it's John, where Jesus is having a conversation with Nicodemus, saying, Jesus says you have to be born again.
Yeah.
And Nicodemus' response is, how am I supposed to return to my mother's womb? And Jesus is basically saying, I'm not talking about your physical birth. I'm talking about your second birth, birth of the spirit. Right? So we find that within the Christian tradition as well.
Yeah.
So before we pull another question, we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you've got a bowl or question in the bowl and you're like, okay, I really want this one answered, if you want to just speak the question, be a good time. Okay, the bowl it is.
Great.
So what do you currently do? Do you still stay in Peru? Do you plan on going into engineering?
That's a good question. No, I do not plan to go into engineering. My path took me somewhere completely different, and that is not my plan anymore. What I do in Peru, because I'm just here for 3 weeks. I was here for my aunt's wedding, Tom's sister, And so I'm here for 3 weeks, and I'm just visiting family, get to visit with you guys a bit. And I'm heading back right after Thanksgiving. So I live in Peru full time. I've been living there for about 8 years now. And my main work is to work with the sacred plants. What we do is we receive people that want to find guidance in their life, for their spiritual path, find healing, that they want to also develop projects or form as leaders for a new society. This is my principle, my first service, my first job, we could say. I don't really call it a job. I don't feel like it's a job, but this is, you could say, is my job. But in reality, it's the dedication of my life. So also to make money, I have a recording studio because I'm a musician. I played in a bunch of bands down there, play a lot of music. So like secondary would be that, a recording studio. These are other things I do. I have a baby girl down there, so take care of her. But my first dedication is the work with the sacred plants, with the medicines and shamanism.
For a time, you were also brewing kombucha.
Oh yeah.
And when we went to, we got to try some of the kombucha, various kombucha. And then you remember when we went to the pub up there?
Yeah.
It's the
Patties.
the highest, patties. The highest Irish pub in the world in Cusco at like 10,000 feet. And your kombucha that you made, we were able to get there. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a proud moment.
Yeah, no kidding. It was really cool.
Yeah, that was something I was doing, because here in Portland I was brewing beer and making wine and stuff like that. And when I went out there, I stopped drinking, so no more alcohol. But I like to brew because I like the science behind it, and I also like trying stuff and trying mixing flavors together. So then we started a kombucha company out there, and we were selling kombucha all over the valley in Cusco.
Yeah,
that was good fun. Yeah. Good experience.
Yeah. If you could have one message to the world, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one, huh? Man, that's a challenge. I'm not sure what one message to the world would be, man. Yeah, I guess it would be find your path. Yeah, everyone has a path. Yeah, no doubt. That would be. Everyone has a path, has a destiny, has a superior potential of their service to life, of their being, of who they are, right? And to trust that and to find it, because it's possible. We talk about destiny like it's some crazy thing, right? But destiny is this present moment, right? And destiny is a person. It's a form of great spirit. It's a form of God who wants the top for us, for each and every one of us. And to think that destiny, because I feel before I encountered the path, I thought destiny was just kind of a pipe dream, right? But no, destiny is a very real and tangible thing for every single person, and to trust that.
Thank you. Thank you.
How much time do we have?
Well, we got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. Let's keep going.
Actually 10, but we can breathe near the end too.
Yeah.
Do you still play music? If so, what instrument?
Yeah, great. I still play a lot of music. I play guitar mainly. Guitar is my first instrument. I play bass as well. I play piano a little bit, and now I'm producing music. So I have a little studio I built down there, and discovering that. The cool thing about encountering the path, for me, it was like a total change, but it didn't necessarily negate, or I didn't have to reject everything I was doing. What it did was it just changed the way I related to it. So with music, like engineering was my idea, but it wasn't anything I was doing before. Right? That's why for me it's like, oh yeah, engineering just went out the window because it was an idea, but my ideas changed, right? But with music is such an important part of my life, and always has been. So when I encountered the path, I started playing music, but in a totally different way, because I started to encounter the mantras, and I started encountering a shamanic way of playing music, right? So I'm using the example of music, but this is for everything. You can do whatever you do, but just in a different way, right? Shamanism, for example, and music. So now, for me, playing guitar is a meditation, right? Now I play guitar, and I can enter into a shamanic what do you call them?
State.
Through playing guitar, right? You were talking about drums, right? But you can use shamanism, but through any means in reality, right? The typical ones, like Mr. Mac was teaching, is drums, is medicine. But in my opinion, I think you can encounter shamanic states through any means, right? And music now has become a shamanic practice for me.
Yeah. One of my teachers early on, when I didn't know I was encountering shamanism, he said the drums, and I imagine he would even say the medicinals. Well, it wasn't him directly, it was his teacher. So lineage again, right?
Yeah.
Is saying, hey, the drum, the laying down on the floor and getting yourself ready, the medicinals, right? These are all crutches. They're tools that for a time serve us. When you are injured and you use crutches, are going to help you to live your life. But at some point, you don't need it anymore. So for you, you don't need the abuelos of the medicinal plants to encounter spirit. The music for you, it sounds like it takes you there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that it's possible in all that we do that we can be living in that presence.
Yeah. The only thing I would say different about that is that for me personally, the medicines are not a crutch, because from what they've shown me, that is my destiny of service to life, is to work for them, to work with them, right? So in this sense, this is my service to life, and it's not that it's a crutch, but it is an essential relation. So that's the only difference that I would say with what this guy was saying, and that is unique and different for each person. So that could have been totally 100% correct for him though.
Yeah. Sweet. And this is part of what I love about like being in conversation with you and with other people who are on the path, is that we see things differently and we can identify that and respect each other and teach each other, right? Yeah. So you've given me something new to think about that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah.
Let's try one more.
Great.
Do you believe that it takes a special person to follow your path, or can anyone?
The shamanic path is not for everyone, and that's not because anyone's better or worse than the other. It's just because of nature. It's because of destiny. It's because of that each one has their personal path, and that simply we can't walk every path. It's just not natural, right? Everyone. So my particular path, the shamanic path, is a path of the warrior. So that means, like I said, like medicine, you have to confront things. You go for other people. Their path is the path of there's discipline also, the shamanic path. But I'm talking more about like rigorous discipline, waking up 4 a.m, chanting the rounds, 108 beads, etc., right? These are different ways, but it corresponds to someone's nature. For example, when you're in school, some people are super good at math, right? Does that mean that other people can't do math? No, but that's a specialty that's just natural for some people. Or other people are writers, right? It is the same thing on the spiritual path, that everyone has a nature that corresponds to their spirit of who they are and their way of walking the path. So, not everyone is meant to walk this shamanic path, right? Not everyone is meant to be a Buddhist. Not everyone's meant to be a Jew. Not everyone's meant to be Catholic, right? This is the beauty of life, is the diversity, right? If the flowers on the mountain were all pink, it'd be a bit boring, right? It would be a bit plain. In the end, pink wouldn't be so special, right? The beauty of nature is its color and its diversity of color, and this is natural. This is the nature of life.
And so it brings us back to, I think, what you shared earlier about your message. If you had a message to the world, find your path and walk your path.
Walk your path.
Live your path.
Yeah.
Don't try and live mine or do what you think someone else wants you to do, but live yours.
Yeah. You may find people, and this is important too, you find the people you can walk with, right? Who you can share a path with, who you can walk side by side, right? But that doesn't mean you copy other people, like you're saying, you walk your path, right? Even the people that we can walk side by side, we're still going to be different, right? And not to be afraid of that, because the difference is the richness. As long as we can open the dialogue, as long as we can understand that, the difference enriches all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we stop for here? We got 5 minutes left. Everyone want to come up and chat with Rom? Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, guys.